Okay, it's really nice to be here. Thank you all for coming. I didn't expect that many people here. I would first like to talk a bit about myself. I only have 20 minutes, so it will not take too long. I'm leading a startup that creates a mobile game for ill children that supports them during the treatment and offers psychological support. So we use game environment to reach out to children. They find this environment very engaging, fun. They're comfortable with game environment, so we can always use this environment to do something else, to use it for a purpose. And also, in our case, we also analyze and gather the data from the game for medical personnel so they can follow the treatment and see how the kid is doing both mentally and physically during the treatment. So that's pretty much all shortly of what we are doing at the startup. But moreover, I'm also completing my PhD at the University of Helsinki. And there I'm also studying the mental burden of chronic disease. And today, I think that I will just tell you first about our story, why we started doing this kind of a startup, why we chose game environment to reach out to ill children. But before that, since I only have a couple of familiar faces here, I would really like to know if you are already involved in gaming industry or you're just interested. So please raise your hand if you are already involved in gaming industry. Okay. Okay, so it's only 1.5 hands and then one of my colleagues. So I will take it then from the very beginning. Initially, why we started this startup was the reason that I was doing my PhD in Helsinki, but before that I did clinical work in Estonia, but due to the language barrier, I wasn't really able to do that in Helsinki, and that's why I started working on some other issues or some other solutions to reach out to ill children, how to help them without knowing really the language where I'm living or the culture there, and because I am originally from Estonia, so this should be mentioned, but I guess that the name says this as well. So in Helsinki, we have really lively kind of health technology ecosystem. A lot of events happen all the time regarding different technological solutions that can be used for medical purposes, for treatment purposes. And that kind of got me very interested in technology. And I had a really good opportunity 2 years ago to work on a gamified solution or some kind of solution for ill children, and this is where it all started. So 2 years ago, I got involved in an idea to use very simple gamification techniques to help out ill children. And gamification itself is just using game principles, mechanics in a non-game context. So this is how this is very familiar to all of us. We go to, I don't know, in retail shops, they have their customer engagement and customer like plans, and we collect stickers and we get something for those. So in a very simple manner, this is also gamification. But gamification, if you would like to have if we would like to induce behavioral change, which is our aim with ill children, that we would like to help them to learn healthy behaviors. But then if you use very simple badges and leaderboards, points, it's only a short-term engagement. And that's why we shifted from using just gamification principles to help out children. We proceeded to using a game, like full-on game environment. Like I said in the beginning, kids find it very fun, engaging, they use it all the time, they are constantly in their phones, so this is very, very, very familiar to kids. And that's how we started working on really very strongly on the game perspective. Of course, our aim was always to deliver the content, the psychological monitoring support to kids that would be very personalized. But you can't, this kind of connection, so this is kind of, in my opinion, this is the big difference between gamification and games in general. The connectedness that a kid or any other user, an adult, has with the environment. If there is a very strong emphasis on the storyline, on the narrative, then it's completely different experience for the user than it is when you just collect points, badges, you see yourself in the leaderboard. The connectedness with the environment comes from the storyline. And in that sense, I'm very happy that I have Georgi here in the audience. He is my colleague who is working really very strongly on improving our storyline. So in our game, what kids are experiencing is that they need to find their inner superhero to fight the disease monster. So they need to do different kind of actions in the game. They have daily challenges. They need to help the magical city Triumph-land to get healthy, to get rid of the disease monster who has spread the disease all over the city. So this really brings in the connectedness with the environment for kids. And I think that it's very, very important. And when Georgi started doing the internship with us, he's also a PhD student in history and rhetorics. It really changed my view as well. And I very, very strongly believe now that the narrative is one of the key factors in using the game to reach out, no matter if you're just doing it for entertainment purposes or you're using other purposes to achieve through the game. But of course, there are a lot of games that have no storyline. And a couple of years ago, I think that the most downloaded game in Play Store was the Flappy Bird. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but this has literally no storyline at all. It is just you need to, there are some like pipes in a Super Mario-like environment, and you need to, the bird needs to not collide with those pipes, and that was it. It was most downloaded game. Everyone wanted to create something similar, because in entertainment games, of course, it's different. People play a lot of games on Facebook. These have no storyline, of course, those Candy Crush and so on. But what they do give you is that you can use the environment already that you're familiar with. You are anyways using Facebook, you can play there, you can compare yourself, I think, with friends, and there is a leaderboard for that. So it's a different kind of approach. It's very delicate with games with purpose. I don't like the word serious game or the concept of serious games, because in general, if you take the fun out of the game, then it doesn't serve the purpose. I much more prefer the combination of games with purpose instead of serious games, which is the concept that is highly used in the field. But the key really is that the game needs to be fun, otherwise nobody will use the game. And it was also said in the introduction of the event, I wanted to really discuss how we achieved this attractiveness or usability and fun in the game on top, or being our main goal on top of the content that we wanted to deliver. And here we really feel that you need to involve stakeholders, you need to involve the users even before you start designing the game. You need to involve, in our case, we needed to involve patients, their families, doctors, nurses, psychologists. We involved them all. We had regular meetings, and we wanted to know what we can do in order to help them out, what we can do further from psychological help to help out ill children, to improve the treatment monitoring for doctors and so on. and when they are involved in the very beginning, they give magical feedback that gets you going so much faster, and that is highly relevant because, for example, although we might think that we know what kids like, or that we have all been kids and we know how to deliver something for kids or how to create a game for kids that they like, but they are the real experts, especially those children who are ill. They are the real expert in their illness, in what they like, and so on. So testing with the players or the users and also involving them in the design process, this is really like very, very important part. Yes. What else should I talk about? From our perspective, it is very strongly research-based, what we do. So my background is in research. We have additional member of the team who is specializing in health psychology. And like I said, we want to deliver the content, but not only that, we want to make it fun and engaging, and that's why we have involved stakeholders. But it's very critical also to what happens very often with research-based solutions is that you would like to make something digital instead of really thinking how it acts in a different kind of environment. When it has been shown that on paper it works, does it really work in a digital environment as well? Does it work in a mobile game? And this is all a matter of testing and testing and testing. So it's a very long process. If you would like to achieve something through a game, then it's a very, very long process of testing and co-designing and delivering finally. And for us, since we deliver support for treatment through a game, then of course, while talking to doctors who are those who are going to kind of, similarly as they prescribe medication, that they also prescribe our solution to their patients. We have found quite a lot of difficulties in reaching out to medical doctors with a completely new concept that hasn't been used before, that you do something through a game, and for them it's a game, and they it's very difficult to reach out to them, and there I really think that the domain expertise really helps. That in our case, that we have 3 psychologists in the team who are able to tell to the medical doctors that it's not a game, it's something that we use to reach out to kids because they are already so familiar with it and they are so happy to use it. And then of course the mind shift also, or they start to perceive it differently. They really start to see it as a support tool instead of a game. But also, like I said, to combine different kind of industries, or to combine research and games, and to combine everything, it's a lot of work, and most of you said, or most of you didn't raise your hands saying that you are part of a gaming industry already. So just always know that game development itself takes very long time. It's highly research. It takes so much resources, both time-wise and money-wise mainly as well. It's very expensive. So, and also if you would like to attach a purpose to it, it makes it much more expensive. And then again, like if you think that it's something that you're really passionate to do, then you need money for that as well. You cannot just live out of air and love, unfortunately. So you just need to keep in mind that when you're reaching out to investors, then for example, they would say that, okay, you want to achieve something through a game, so I would consider you as a gaming company, yet you are doing something for a really tiny group of people, those who are ill. Although chronically ill children, every 3rd kid these days is chronically ill, but still it's not the whole market. They would want you investors mainly to work on the whole market. Why, if you're a gaming company, if you use so much resources in developing something, then do it for the whole population, do it for everyone. Why do you want to do it only for ill children? So, because in general, if we think about market sizes as well, because if you're interested in gaming, then it's the gaming industry itself for mobile gaming. This is anticipated to rise over like 150 billion by 2020. Then again, if we look at serious games, or those games with purpose, this is what we are doing as well, and this is not only mobile, but in general, console games, PC games, all of the games with purpose, then this is only 10 billion. So it's a tiny, much more tiny market. But it also always helps you to kind of position yourself better and to communicate better what you are doing. So in our case, for example, what has really helped is to say that we are not really in the serious games market, but the market where we are at, it's mobile health market, which is one of the biggest growing market globally. And the digital health market is around 500 billion. So it's a very, very big market. But really, of course, like this is not for creative people. It's not probably the most interesting topic, but it's still, you need to consider a lot of things. To use game environment with kids, with adults, it's very beneficial. But it takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of negotiations with investors and with institutions that give out public grants, so it's a lot of work. Yes, I'm thinking if I should perhaps stop, because I also didn't show you slides today because I got a little memo beforehand, and then I learned that, of course, most of you are creative people, so you know, from time to time this Comic Sans slips into my slides, so better not to show this to you. But I guess that it would be really good if we could also discuss a bit, because it's very important. You know now a little bit what I'm doing and what have been the main challenges, like money-wise and really the time-wise, how long it all takes. But I still truly believe that gaming industry and games in general, this has a lot of potential, not only for children, but we all love to play. This is something that is common for all of us, so it holds a great promise, and I'm happy to take your questions. Yeah.
We'll come with you. Let's applause first. And I'm running with microphone, and raise your hands who has questions, or be ready to ask questions. Okay?
Thank you. Hello. So it will be a little bit provocative question. So you mentioned the goal of the game is to reach out to the kids who have some like communication problems maybe. Question is, but like we already know it's a problem that like kids are sitting in smartphones and phones and don't communicate like with each other. Could it be that this thing will even make it worse? So they will spend more time like in the smartphone, sitting like in that game instead of communicating with other kids. So maybe that game should have been in a real world, like some, I don't know, on paper, like with other players, rather than mobile game.
This is a great question, and of course this is a very delicate topic. But we need to consider the fact that we do spend most of our times in smartphones, and especially kids, they are pretty much born with their smartphone, so we might as well use this to do something useful. Of course, real communication, that's the key. We can never lose that. But for example, why we started even working with game environment, one of the reasons was when we started meeting with parents and kids who have cancer, then what very often happens is that there is a blockage between the family and between the kid. They don't know what the other one knows. They don't know about the very difficult topics such as death and so on. So there is really a very difficult times in regards of communication. And in that sense also, since we have also like not only a dashboard for medical personnel that they can monitor how a kid is doing, but also the same kind of approach for parents, that they can see from the game what the kid has learned, how he or she is feeling and so on. And this actually improves the communication instead of making it worse. So this can be also, although it is still a digital solution, it can also improve the communication if it's done properly.
We're at the beginning, right? Okay.
So I have a question about the measurement of success of the game. Do you have any kind of metrics you're measuring? Like, how do you know that the game is helping the kids?
So when we started, we already kind of established for ourselves that if we can help even one kid, then we are already successful. What we do is we run clinical trials that we really scientifically prove the effectiveness. We check the health-related, this is boring and scientific, but we check the health-related quality of life and mental well-being before they start playing the game. Then there is a 8-week period of playing the game. We test midpoint and then we test afterwards as well, and then we can see if there are really within person changed, or if the kid who was feeling mentally very bad in the beginning is feeling better, then this is for us very, very successful. And from 2019 we are going to run also randomized clinical trials. So this will be including kids who have cancer, asthma and diabetes, and then we compare those kids who play our game to treatment as usual. So those kids who receive nothing extra to the treatment, and then we see how these groups differ throughout the process. So these are the things we use to evaluate the effectiveness, because it's a great question. It is very important. A lot of startups say that they are research-based and they have effective solution and so on. So in our case, what we can say at this point is that based on the 3 rounds of testings we have completed with both healthy kids and then children with cancer in 2 countries, in Estonia and in Finland, and that they like the game, they would really like their friends to use the game, they find it attractive, and they find the content also useful. But now we are really in the phase of really seeing with scientific methods if it's actually also effective.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. How do you measure mental well-being scientifically? Thank you.
That's a provocative question for a researcher in health psychology. So there are validated questionnaires that you use in order to estimate the depressive symptoms, anxiety, cognitive abilities, which is one of the things that are really highly associated to chronic illnesses, not only because they might have like lower IQ, but also they do worse in school because they cannot be at school that often. So these are very objective measures that we can evaluate and see if it's doing or if there is any positive effect of the game on those issues. So these are very scientific methods, validated like cross-culturally in all regions in the world. So this has nothing to do with being subjective. These are objective measures of mental well-being, and you can measure that for sure. That's what at least I have learned during the 12 years at university.
More questions? Okay, great.
Thank you for sharing your story. You briefly mentioned that bringing that from paper to digital, and it's all about testing. But me as a designer, I'm just interested in what other options you explored, like kind of having a digital companionships in a kind of, or like a physical form, or you just went for like a game and on the mobile because it was like quite the cheapest option.
Well, it's to really estimate, like if you create one health application, it's to bring it to market, it's almost like 500,000 to bring it to market. But this is just a health application. You monitor treatment, or you kind of measure, or like you fill in some data in the application in a very simple way. And then again, you get points by filling in that my blood sugar is within the normal range. But like I said, I started visiting a lot of events on health technology. And then I saw that there is a really big gap between effectiveness and attractiveness. So researchers, they have seen that something works in a clinical setting or in a research setting, and they just want to put it to like a mobile or digital setting. So the most simple innovation that has been done, of course, is to just put all the questionnaires to like a web-based portal or whatever that the kids or adults can just fill it in, and then it scores automatically. So usually psychologists are the one who needs to go through manually, like what are the answers and what is the score of something. So this is okay, yes, it is effective to use it that way, but nobody really finds it engaging and fun to use. And during these events, I learned it very quickly that there is this open space of creating something really engaging and cool and fun for the patients, and still being possible to be effective. And gamification was really a hot topic. I think that it still is, but 2 years ago it was way hotter than it is now. And that's why this is all where it started from me. And then I quickly learned that this, when you have push notifications, for example, to tell to kids that drink water, and they can either dismiss or say that, yes, I drank it, there is no way for us to evaluate if they actually did, and there is no way for us to evaluate if these behaviors actually become internalized as well, if they actually find these very simple techniques to be helpful in drinking water. So what we have done now with the game is that, for example, like I said, there is the disease monster on the loose and needs to be stopped. And there are some kids in the city who are dehydrated. And then the kid needs to collect water in order to give out to those kids who need water. But then if the kid is not doing it regularly, then the water gets contaminated. And then there are other tasks that they need to do. And this is with other issues as well, like physical activity and hygiene. So learning through action is really something that has been shown in research to be highly, highly useful method to induce this kind of behavior change, or to induce the situation where those learned behaviors become part of the player or the user. I hope I answered the question at this point.
So here are more questions. Okay, I will quickly ask one question. Can I? Or okay, I'll give you first. Maybe you have the same question.
Could you give us some success story? What was happening to the behavior after 8 weeks of the trial?
We started trials in June, so now we have only been testing the usability of the application, the effectiveness of the content, kind of. So each component that we have, like we have a very massive educational component, for example, where they learn about the treatment, about side effects, and so on. So we have tested in those 2 countries with children with cancer, like how they perceive that and would they recommend the game for their friends in that sense. So by the end of the year, we know more or we know the answer to your question.
Well, more questions? It's good, so many questions in the morning.
Hi. How are the health environments in Estonia and Finland different from each other?
These are very different. In Finland, we are part of this health innovation village, which is like an ecosystem for health technology startups. In Estonia, we are also in Connected Health Cluster, which is the similar umbrella organization for health technology startups, universities, and hospitals, and so on. in Finland, although a lot is done on paper, way more than it should, innovations in healthcare are way better perceived. Testing and piloting in Finland is easier, although it does require paperwork, but doctors are much more prone to use innovative, different solutions to help out their patients, to make the care more comprehensive, more like wide and much more enjoyable for the patients. In Estonia, the doctors are still very much into the old-fashioned way of doing things on paper. You know, they are also these e-tervis, which we have the electronic health records and stuff like this. They still find it difficult even to use that, although it makes their lives much more easier. So these innovative solutions, actually Haigekassa, which is our, what is it? Public health insurance. They want to make digital solutions also part of the register for medications. So kind of the similar way that doctors prescribe medication, they should in the future be able to do that with digital health solutions as well. This has not happened in Estonia before. In Finland it is also working in a way that doctors already use a lot of digital health solutions and kind of prescribe it, let's say. But in Estonia, this is still work in progress. And by being part of connected health cluster here in Estonia, we see that this process will take a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have two more questions.
On a bit of a related question to what I just asked. Anyway, so I was also interested to know in how it's different, how Estonia and Finland are different in matters of talking about mental illness. So Estonia, to me, is a place where it's still very Soviet influence in the way that it's quite taboo to talk about mental illness. They simply didn't exist, while Finland would be a place where you'd have maybe a bit of a different environment that I suppose more open. Anyway, this is based on just my thoughts, not anything concrete. How do you feel about that?
I do agree with that cultural differences there play a big role, and indeed in Soviet Union nobody had any mental health issues ever. Like, this was impossible. This did not happen. But in Finland people are more open in talking about that. I came back from Cleveland actually on Wednesday. I was there attending a medical innovations competition, and then one of the competitors was asking from the crowd different kind of questions. How many of you have had like bone fractures and so on? People were raising hand. And then, different kind of like asthma and so on, and then asking about has anyone ever had any behavioral issues or any mental health issues? And then nobody raised hands. There were like 200 people in the crowd, and then also the performer said that, of course, like 30% should raise the hand, but it's something that is always it's a very delicate topic still globally. In Finland, I think that it is somewhat better at least than it is in Estonia, but in global sense this is still very difficult to talk about. But like in our case, for example, as we use this game environment, we don't ask kids like 1 million questions in the game. We use emojis and fun things, where that is also like a proxy or a measure of how the kid is doing, kind of. So it's much easier. They are much more real in that sense that they don't need to answer to a question that do you feel depressed. It's different. They can answer with an emoji that they feel sad.
I saw one. Yeah. Hmm?
Hi. Do you think that this kind of gaming approach would be also beneficial for like adults or adolescents? And would you ever consider creating a game for them?
This is a great question, and I do want to hope that none of us really loses the ability to be all fun and play games, and we do play board games and so on, and we most of us, I would assume, use mobile games or those Facebook games, for example. So it is beneficial also in adults. There are many success cases actually with adults. For example, with physical therapy and rehabilitation, for example, when they have had some bone fractures and they need to, or like hip replacement, for example, elderly people, to kind of make the physical therapy exercises properly. They do it through a game. And they, even like very elderly people, find it very relevant and fun, and they actually do way more physical activity compared to those who do it together with a physical therapist. But if you do it through a game, it has been shown to be more successful. So yeah, I do believe that the age group really doesn't matter. There is, of course, a difference in how you approach to children and to adults, but it is something to proceed or to consider no matter the age group.
Well, more questions, or and okay.
Me again. I have another provocative question. So I know you're selling to hospitals and doing the clinical trials. Why not just put the game on App Store as $2 per game and say in the description that it helps children with illnesses?
Funny story, we have discussed this before. That's a great question. The thing is that since we offer also additional value for hospitals through the dashboard, then this is for us, it's these yearly licensing fees for hospitals are the way to go here in that region. But this, I mean Europe, where healthcare is covered by the government, but in US it's very different. And I do agree with you that in US we need to go directly to consumer. We're not there yet. We will make it happen to sell it directly to those in need, because the healthcare system is completely different, and the reimbursements and everything, it makes it so complicated, and doctors are not really prescribing the digital health solutions the way that it's done in Europe, so it wouldn't be beneficial for us to do it through hospitals. We have to reach out to those who are in need directly. Yeah.
Well, we have some time for questions. I came up with one question as well. I wanted to ask more about the content size aspect. I'm sorry. And what do you think? You said that storytelling is quite important, but what strategy, as maybe you found, is better? Like, do it through the storytelling, and which kind of stories? Maybe you have examples of a good story which was used in game, or it is more like the approach of with levels, like moving up to the levels and reaching the final goal.
It's a good question. I still very strongly believe that the connectedness can come only from the storyline. Just if you reach out higher levels, if you get points and badges and achievements and are on top of the leaderboard, it's a different kind of feeling of connectedness. I don't, like I said, as Georgi has started from the team from January, this has completely changed the way that I feel regarding the narrative, and I would say that this is really the best and the only option to go with if you really want to make a difference with a game, if you would like to achieve a change in behavior, if you have this kind of an aim with the game, then you have to make it, the kid needs to feel, or the adult anyways, the player needs to feel the connectedness. They need to want to play it on daily basis, otherwise this change the effectiveness. Nobody cares about the effectiveness if it's not engaging and fun and cool for the player.
Do you have an example of story, any kind of you used? Or now?
Well, like I said in the beginning, our story goes in a way that the kid needs to find the inner superhero, needs to become the protector of the city. I cannot tell too much, Perhaps you would like to play the game as well. It's very engaging and fun, I'm telling you. But anyways, the disease monster needs to be stopped, and then the kid needs to take a lot of different kind of challenges in order to do so. This is actually very different from other games for health, because the focus implementing narrative or implementing storyline to a game, it's a very long and difficult process, and to come up with a story in the first place that it would be engaging, that's also a different type of a thing. We cannot always come up, we're not that bright that we can come up with a storyline that would be engaging. In our case, when the first time when we had the workshop with the team, and Georgi was giving us the improved storyline, or the like kind of the full version of it, then we were all like thinking that, oh my God, that's just absolutely brilliant. This is like this is so engaging and so much fun that we should make, a movie out of it as well. That this was really this really changed the way that the game is perceived from the team side and also from the kids side. We have implementing the storyline is still in progress, but we have tested already with kids, and they have given us, how much was it, like 8.5 out of 10. So that's good.
Well, and maybe the last question, which is quite simple. What is your favorite game and why?
Oh yeah, well, I guess that this is a funny story that I'm not really an avid gamer myself. So that's why I do have like experts in the team to really make it fun and engaging. But I think that probably my favorite game ever that made me mega frustrated because I was playing with my brother has been the old console game Contra, because I was the player 2 and my brother always like ran further from me, and I died in the game, and then like it was the aim of my life to be as quick as he is in order to be able to take the challenges together with him. So this has probably changed my life the most.
So if you have more questions, you can come if Kadri has time. So
yeah,
how
I do
much?
have like some minutes.
Some minutes. You can come here and ask it personally, because we need to wrap up as it's still working day. And so let's thank Kadri. Thank you a lot. It was very interesting.